So the next factor I'd like to talk about, so what we're talking about is the 7 factors that we have isolated of issues that block the molecular biological pumps that are available to us to detoxify, yeah? Or mechanisms that entrap toxins in the system. Yeah? So we went through 5 of them. Now number 6 is food allergies. Now food allergies have multiple implications. One, when you give the person a food that they're allergic to, it mounts an immune response. And if you give this food every day, the immune system is completely overworked, overactivated all the time, and will not attend to pertinent other issues. Yeah? You distract the army over here, and there's nobody to fight over here. That's one issue. But the issue that we're most concerned about is, first of all, I use the word food allergy very generously. We mean with this not just IgE-mediated allergies, which are the acute hypersensitivity allergies, or the IgG, IgM allergies, which are more low-grade allergies, but also the delayed lymphocyte reactions, which can be 72 hours or up to 3 weeks after eating a food. You can have this delayed reaction that everybody misses. And these reactions, first of all, distort the immune system, like I mentioned, but they also cause mild brain swelling. You know, when you get fatigued after you eat your wheat, it is because the brain goes into a different state and actually swells slightly up, has an inflammatory reaction to it that is devastating to the detox mechanisms. Detox mechanisms only work if the channels are free through which to route the toxins out of the system. Then, of course, then there is the gluteomorphin and casomorphin issues from Dr. Wakefield. You know, that certain amino acid sequences in gluten and in casein are identical to morphine. And what it does is every time you eat the gluten, there's a short high, followed by a long withdrawal period until you eat it again. And again, morphine in this sense is a neurotransmitter. It's an informational substance. And if you stimulate any neurotransmitter continuously over and over and over, or mimic it with the exogenous substance, you screw up the body's own neurotransmitter production, which is already impaired, as we discussed before. You know? Then in addition comes the whole thing with the spices. That I know some other people mentioned the excitotoxins, you know, that some of the food substances are actually not just allergens, but they're real toxins. They have an excitatory action on the synapses and overactivate certain nerve transmissions. And in the nervous system that's already damaged, has a huge impact.
You mean like glutamate and aspartate?
Yeah, yeah. But even pepper or curcumin or cinnamon can have their abnormal stimulatory effects. You know? And so, but the effect that we're most concerned about is the effect by which they block enzymes that are necessary for detoxification. And all the food reactions can do that. They can have a major impact on the liver detox enzymes, on the way the bowel moves, and just the macroscopic movements of the excretion. Food allergies often cause cystitis and inflammatory reactions in the kidneys that prevent the kidneys from actually excreting toxins. You know, the basal membranes swell up. So food allergies have multiple effects on multiple levels that cannot be downplayed, and therefore just looking at gluten and casein is not enough in an autistic child. All the foods need to be tested, and the trouble is that the conventional food tests, there's IgG testing, IgE and IgG testing, there's IgM testing, there's IgA testing, and there's lymphocyte testing, you know, the ELISA test. And if you put these all together, you can spend thousands of dollars on just one food allergy test. And the trouble is the food allergies change. They're not consistent. You know, you may eat a little bit more of one food, and after 3 weeks, boom, you're allergic to it. And then completely eliminate it for 6 weeks, you're unallergic again to it, and then you get away with a lesser amount of it. That's where the rotation diets and all that come in. And we may or may not, on a practical level, I think we have to discuss the 4-day rotation diet, you know, sort of that ultimately you can eat every food that you're allergic to. If you eat it only once every 4 days, your system does not become allergic to it again once you stopped it for 6 weeks. But how to find out what you're allergic to? The best test is muscle testing, very clearly. The form of muscle testing that I teach is the most sensitive because it captures everything, IgG, IgM, IgE, and the delayed lymphocyte reaction. It's the only testing that I know of that catches all the reactions in a completely free of cost, highly sensitive test. The COCA pulse test is a very reasonable test for most mothers to do. You give a child food, you measure the child's pulse rate before. If the pulse goes up 4 beats or more, the child is allergic to that food. And you can give one single food at a time and get very quickly figure out the majority of the foods. And since most autistic kids only eat like 4 foods, it's not that difficult to find out what they're allergic to.
When you guess all 4 of those foods, probably?
Well, the rules from Dr. Coca were, first of all, you need to establish what the resting low pulse rate of a child is. It means you have to measure it several times during the day and find out what the lowest rate is. Let's say it's 56 beats. Because the pulse test doesn't work when the child is already in an allergic state. Yeah, so if you measure it like after breakfast, maybe 80, and then you measure again after lunch at maybe 80, and then if you give a food that they're allergic to, it won't go up anymore because it's already revving at the allergic rate. But then you discover that at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, 2 hours after lunch, the pulse rate is 56, and only the moment it eats like a piece of cake at 4 o'clock, it goes back up to 80. So you have to find out what that low rate is, and in that state you can challenge it, and you give a piece of bread, you give a sip of milk, and you immediately see within a few minutes that the pulse rate goes up, to usually not just 4 beats, but 10 beats, 15 beats, 20 beats.
But don't you find with the kids that you test that the sensitivities match habitual intake?
Yes and no. There's some things that they've never had that they're still allergic to.
Sure.
And then usually wherever their cravings are, most of the time they're allergic to it. But there's exceptions to that. But I think in general, the food rules that have been worked out for autistic kids are true. Kids shouldn't eat dairy products. I also find problems with other types of milk substitutes, especially goat milk.
Oh,
Goat milk also has lactose in it, it has prime ingredients that make kids allergic also in it.
Is it the pasteurizing or no? Because I know.
Well, the pasteurizing may add to the problem, as Dr. McCullough suggests. I'm not sure about that. But I think.
But it's a problem even when it's unpasteurized.
Yeah, yeah. I think most of the animal milks are have to be looked at with great caution. Gluten, certainly as barley, rye, wheat, and oats, are a no-no unless it's proven and with good testing that they're not allergic to it. They should avoid it.
But even if they're not allergic to gluten, gluten's that one thing. That even if they're not allergic to it, isn't it just an incredibly difficult protein to digest, even for a healthy person?
No, but with good testing of my sort, it will always test allergic just because of that. But with poor muscle testing or poor EAV testing or poor allergy testing, it won't show up, and then it's better to assume that they're still allergic to it. But with good testing, all the difficult to digest proteins will show up as non-compatible. So I think I don't want to say more about the foods. It's the common sense is very good. That a lot of chocolate and sugar, even though that wasn't mentioned, may not be good for them either. Big difference between organic food and non-organic food.
And it's not just the toxins, it also has a lot more nutrient value to it, right?
Now, having my own baby now, I'm shocked trying to buy baby food. How overfed children are with carbohydrates.
Oh, yeah.
It's almost impossible to find a good protein. Like all the baby food is just,
peas and rice.
It's just all the carbohydrate-rich vegetables. Yeah, they're vegetables, and they may even be organic, but it's almost pure carbohydrate masked. So one of the rules that moms need to hear from me is this: the way viruses enter new cells, infect new cells, they can only do that in the presence of insulin. Yeah? Insulin opens the pores in the cells for amino acids and sugar to come in. And this is the portals that viruses use to infect the cell. And so when kids are on a carbohydrate-rich diet, their pores in the cells are constantly open for toxins and viruses to enter the cells to infect new cells. And by simply shifting the diet to a high-fat, moderately high-protein diet, away definitely from the refined carbohydrates to the more complex carbohydrates, of cabbage and so forth, it changes that. And the ideal food for kids with autism is to buy, and this I mean that really seriously, to buy for $14 at Walmart a food processor. It's a top-loaded one that has the engine on top and a cup down here with a rotating blade. And for mom to cut up vegetables, picking vegetables by the colors, some green, some red, some orange,
some yellow,
and put them in there, grind it up, shred it, so it's a nice shredded thing. What happens when you shred vegetables, the contact with oxygen puts an enzymatic process in place where within a few minutes the vegetables reach their maximum amount of enzymes. Yeah, they're actually producing enzymes in a attempt to defend themselves against the onslaught of oxygen. And so the vegetable actually changes over like a few minutes, and if you prepare this and after 20 minutes or so it's eaten, the child eats the most enzyme-rich food. And that food, that raw vegetable, is easy to eat. It's first of all sweet, kids love it. And it's a mix of vegetable juice basically and the fiber both together. And what the fiber does, it stimulates the formation of butyrate, one of the most important fatty acids to calm down brain inflammation. These foods activate acetylation, sulfation, methylation, all these pathways. It doesn't require these pathways for the foods to enter the cells, so they nurture the cells, and the enzymes supplement the body's defective enzyme systems. In these systems, acetylation, sulfation, and so on, the enzymes substitute what the body can't make on its own because of the genetic defects. So raw veggies are fantastic if you can get the kid to eat it.
Also, processing it like that makes it that much more available for the enzymes and the whole digestion.
And kids don't chew usually well, autistic kids, and so it makes them completely available and stuff. And so we recommend to do that. It's a $14 investment. Plus then, finding a way of getting more protein into them, which is always the difficult part. Usually we use like minced meat as a good compromise, or whey protein powder. If the kids do smoothies, which is nice when they do, so there's an easy way of getting the protein in. That's all I want to say about the food allergy issue. And then the last issue that almost none of the American moms know about is what we in Germany call the interference field. An interference field is an area in the body that has been traumatized, that because of the traumatized tissue is now generating abnormal electric impulses. It's, for example, true when you have an appendectomy or tonsillectomy, that the scar tissue is different from healthy tissue. And tissues always move, and if the scar moves against healthy tissue, the friction rub creates static energy that builds up and is discharged into the autonomic nervous system, and it flips a few switches in the spinal cord and in the brain that makes the immune system dysfunctional. The immune system is regulated by the autonomic nervous system. It's not in existence on its own. In fact, the science of psychoneuroimmunology deals with the effect that the mind has via the autonomic nervous system on the immune system. And when you have scars or traumatized joints from an accident, they often distort the function of the autonomic nervous system, which then distorts the function of the immune system, which then cannot cope with the viruses or the measles or the Lyme disease or the intestinal parasites and so forth.